was very neat.
So how did you, of course, with the scheduling, you know that when you were still playing, you had the summer where you get ready for the fall, and then you have fall ball, and you have these lifts. There's a lot of things that really get sprung out of whack when you are done your athletic career. How did you align everything from your fitness standpoint to just your overall scheduling? Because you didn't have these softball obligations anymore. You weren't going into a clubhouse anymore. You weren't going to fall practices. You weren't going to winter or morning workouts. So how did you get everything in line to where it needed to be personally in your life in general?
For sure. I think people learn a lot about themselves. In those couple years after, I was so busy as an athlete, and I thought, okay, finally I'll be able to not be as busy now, not fill my schedule from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. And I tried that for a little bit, and then I realized how much I craved that. And anytime in my life I think like, oh, I've gotten too busy, and I'll take things away, I'm like, nope, I want it back. I want something, someone's back. But I realized how much I liked waking up early and working out, even though I used to be like, oh, I can't wait to not do this anymore. When I was a player, I would still wake up, I'd still work out. I coached a ton to pay for grad school. I didn't think I wanted to be a coach, but I was coaching at night till like 9 o'clock at night to pay for my grad degree. And that's kind of when I started to realize, shoot, I'm enjoying this more than I'm enjoying what I'm actually doing in my degree. And then I think Wednesdays were my day that I was open. And that's when I started either going and talking to teams, or I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just try to write a book. And so talk about slamming my schedule. Like I was either writing my thesis, writing my book, going to class. I was working as a graduate assistant because that's what was paying for half my grad degree. And then I was working after school to pay for, giving lessons. So I think whether you call that like a coping mechanism, like, oh, I don't want to actually deal with these bad feelings of missing my sport, so I'm going to fill my day so I'm too busy, or if that's just, something I do crave in general, it's probably some semblance of a combination of both. But yeah, it was trying to learn. It was trying to learn, like, do I like working out in the morning, at night, at home, just trying to figure it out.
Did you ever go through that abyss, that unknown of, okay, what's next year? Because there is no more softball, and I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Did you ever go through that?
Yes and no.
And how did you cope with it?
Yeah, so I definitely went through it, but I didn't go through it and have a panic about it either. I think some people go through it and it really hits them. It was right when I started to realize, shoot, I'm really enjoying coaching. I'm not over, I don't think I want to go on to my PhD. I don't think I want to go work in a lab the rest of my life like I thought. I want to coach. And then so I left for grad school. I had one more semester. I was going home for the summer, and I was like, I don't, that whole June and July, I really didn't know. I was like really sitting there trying to think. I think probably the reason I didn't have that stress is because I had parents who were like, don't go jump into something that you hate. Like, you have time to do an internship. You can live at home if you need to. And I know that's a big debate. Some parents say like, well, no, you got to get kicked out back against the wall and then figure it out. And then, I think you have other parents who are like my situation that just said, let's afford you time to start something if you want to start it. That summer I met my now business partner. So it was very funny how right when I was at this crossroads, I ended up meeting this guy who's like, hey, I really want to do a facility. We can own it. We can coach in it. Let's see where this goes. So it's obviously worked out. So it was really only about 2 months of not knowing.
And how did you guys meet? That's interesting how the stars align there.
It is interesting. I was giving a hitting lesson in my backyard, and this guy brought his daughter, and he's like, I know someone who has the same degree as you. He did that whole kinesiology thing. He goes, you guys should meet and just chat about research. And I was like, okay. So I had, I was meeting someone at a Starbucks to talk about kinesiology, I guess. And I knew nothing about him. And he walked in, he sat down, he got his notebook out. He's like, all right, awesome. He's like, so let me know, why do you think you'd be a good fit for this job? And I was like, what job? I was like, what are you talking about?
An interview all of a sudden. Yeah.
So it was this ambushed job interview that turned into more of a business partner conversation that obviously has led to what our companies are right now.
Okay. All right. So it is amazing though how the stars align there.
Yes.
Like that,
Definitely. I'm super grateful for that.
Did you ever have that moment where you went back and said, man, I really wish I would have focused on studying this more, because now I'm finding out that this is my passion and not so much kinesiology?
A little bit. I mean, Northern Iowa is known for strength and conditioning, and they had such a phenomenal strength and conditioning department, but I had it so stuck in my head I didn't want to coach that I really stayed way more in the lab and didn't interact with athletes while I was there. And so when I got to this facility, it was almost like I was trying to do a crash course. I had like 6 months to try to teach myself everything about strength and conditioning, to try to be a certified strength and conditioning professional and get all those certifications in order to coach. And I was sitting there and I was like, son of a gun. I was sitting in Iowa for 2 years. I could have been doing this. But yes and no. Like you say that, but in the same breath, like all the other things I did learn obviously helped me in other ways too. I want to go back and erase it.
The world we live in today, I think it gives you an opportunity. And I think that athletes post their career have a lot more opportunities than, say, the athletes who were finished in the 90s, early 2000s. And I say that because you can combine certain passions with your actual profession. You have combined kinesiology with softball and teaching hitting through the way the body moves and through muscular patterns, body patterns, movement patterns. I think that is a good lesson in there for a lot of athletes trying to navigate that post-career, that you don't have to be fixated on one particular thing. You can combine a couple of things because there's a lot of outlets, a lot of new technology out there. You can be creative and you can do something that nourishes that passion, but also it gives you the opportunity to make money and to make a living as well.
Absolutely. And I think too, you start to have to redefine what you think of as success or successful, because as an athlete, success might be winning a championship. Success might be getting drafted. Success might be a certain miles per hour that you're throwing, whatever that may be. You get done, and then you have to figure out, okay, what is success to you? And my business partner and I say this all the time. We didn't get into coaching to make all this money, and we certainly wanted to be able to make a living and do what we love. Someone else's definition of success is very different, especially living right outside of New York City. Like, there are ample opportunities for maybe a lower quality of life in the beginning of your career to lead to a higher quality of life later on. Like, it's not the same path for everybody. And I think that's also something athletes have to keep in mind, is what one person does is going to be completely different than someone else. And you're going to get to a good place. It doesn't have to be the same. And I think that, again, lends to that thief of joy. Like, when you start comparing, like, well, yeah, that's their path. This is your path. You're not in a bad place. You just might be in a different place than you thought you were. And that doesn't mean you're not right where you're supposed to be.
And that's, yeah. And that's, again, that's just a myth that is kind of, I guess, was fabricated by our society, where right away, at 23, 24, 25, you have to have things figured out. And it's just simply not the case. That's why, for me, and you've mentioned before that you're getting married very soon. I think that for me, getting married at a later age, if you're late 20s, early 30s, is probably the proper way to go in today's world, because like I mentioned before and alluded to, with so much technology out there, there's so many things you can do. I never imagined 3 years ago I'd be doing one podcast, let alone two. I always looked, in fact, I've said once, I said, I'm never going to do a podcast. I just don't see the point of it. And here I am doing two podcasts. So that's why, to me personally, that I think that athletes post their career, they have to, between ages 22 to 25, have to realize that you're still very young and there's still time to figure things out and still have a little bit of fun and to expand your network and to understand that there's a lot of other things out there that you can do now that you didn't get a chance to do when you were so dedicated to your sport.
So true. Coach Murphy used to say all the time, you could have a grain of rice, but if you're thankful for that grain of rice, you're going to be happy. And you could have everything you've ever wanted, but still be looking at everyone else and thinking, well, I should have done this path and I should have done that. And you're never going to be like, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. But if you constantly look at, like, okay, I'm grateful for this opportunity, I'm grateful for this failure, I'm grateful I met this person, whatever it may be, all of a sudden, I think that lends to a little bit more of a content version of yourself with where you are in your life, and also having that growth mindset that your best days are still ahead of you, that they're not when you were an athlete or wherever they may be.
I like the idea of taking one day at a time, because if you list off things that you want to do, you never seem to do them. More spontaneity. That's what that would be my advice.
It's fair.
Be spontaneous with what you want to do.
I think, I used to, at the very beginning or end of the year, I would look back at the year, try to think of the next year, be like, all right, where do I want to be a year from now? And it was more like less to do goals and more to be goals type thing that I think, probably start to fall into place.
What do they always say? The dreamer gets nowhere, the doer just does it, or something like that. I'm not on top of my
You're full of your
sayings.
quotes today.
Yeah, I'm real Jimmy cliche today. I want to give everybody a quick lesson. Like, for example, spontaneity. I'm going to the Bucks home opener tomorrow. You know when I decided that? Yes. Well, tomorrow. We're recording this on a Saturday. But so I went to the Bucks home opener on Sunday. But we know when I decided that on Friday.
There you go.
There you go. Sometimes you just have to,
Very nice.
and be willing to spend $500. You know, the service fees on these tickets are getting ridiculous. You know,
well, pay for experiences, right? Not for things.
I guess. Yeah.
It's another cliche
service
we got.
Still, I mean, they're price gouging us here. All right. Next week, episode 12, we're going to get into some hitting stuff next week. Talking about keeping a hitting journal. By the way, I was talking with somebody earlier in the week about this. They asked my opinion. Why? I don't know. But they asked my opinion on what my favorite drills were for hitting. And I told them I'm pretty simple. You know, I like front toss. I like off-center front toss, working on the inner half and the outer half of the plate. But I'm also old school, and I like to go on the field. And I like to take batting practice on the field to get some training, some visualization training. What are your favorite hitting drill? I'm not big on like too many drills. What are your favorite hitting drills though? What would you recommend?
So, if people are, is it like super cliche to say the one that's right for the athlete?
Well, today's show is cliche.
Yeah, I love field drills that let an athlete flow, and so something as simple as like if I were to start an athlete to just like try to learn how to create power and how to flow in their swing, some type of walk up drill, or like almost like a Bellinger drill where you start tall and take a big step into it just to feel the power of that whip in your bat. I also like constraint drills, so something where not letting you move around a lot at all, and maybe I'm restricting your legs, I'm forcing you to keep your bat in your shoulder, and I'm letting you just to teach yourself like, okay, this is how quick you can be or how short to the ball you can be. So those are kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum. And then I don't disagree with that at all. Front toss on a field, maybe at night, is probably like the coolest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
Just to be able to see where the ball goes, when the ball lands, where it goes, that spin is so important. I think that's probably the most valuable way to understand sequencing. Like, hey, when I overswing, the ball doesn't go as far as when I allow my body to whip and flow. So yeah, if we're going there, that's at night under the lights, front toss on a field. It's probably my favorite.
There you go. Simplicity. Very simple. So that's next week, episode 12, creating a hitting journal this week. Be sure to check out the Lab Epstein hitting podcast. Jake is back, episode 115, talking about understanding a pitcher in the box.
Very cool.
A lot of fun doing that. What do you have coming up at Softball Strength Academy?
Softball Strength Academy, we are getting busy. We are actually combining a lot of our hitting programs. We have quite a few girls doing our hitting programs with our throwing programs, and they're committing to the entire 6 months of off season. So we're writing a lot of programs for our athletes right now. So that's at Softball Strength Academy and at Velo University to check both out. And then any athlete that trains with us also gets their strength training. So that strength training can be found at athleteswarehouse on Instagram.
I want to check something before we sign off here. Give me a second. Okay, because I have a question about college football. I think I'm going to make that a thing every week now for the rest of the football season. Let's see here. Penn State last week beat Auburn, and apparently they are playing the SEC. Which SEC is is Alabama in?
The West.
Okay.
SEC West Conference.
So I don't think
Auburn's in the East with like Florida and Georgia and
right
on the side. West is LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, I believe.
Okay, all right, never mind. I was gonna say because Penn State looked pretty good last week. I think they would give Alabama a run for their money.
I think you know what? I wish there was more things like the Texas Alabama game we saw a couple weeks ago.
Oh, it's a great game.
Oh my gosh, those are so good for the sport. So yeah, Alabama has Vanderbilt today.
Okay.
Pray for Vanderbilt, everybody.
Okay. Let me see what the line is on that game.
I don't know what it is.
Oh boy. Yeah. Looks like Alabama's going to win that one according to the lines. Pretty Pretty handily. All right. Well, next week, episode 12, cross functionality. Be sure to subscribe and watch the show Softball Strength Academy YouTube page, and we will talk to you next week. Bye bye.